Welcome back. Yesterday in our main lesson story, we were listening to the exploits of Zeus's mortal descendants, and he came down to Earth and took for his wife Europa, and then Cadmus was one of his descendants who ruled the great walled city of Thebes. Today's story is Tantalus and Pelops. The Muses sang about Tantalus, condemned to suffer forever in the underworld. He stood in water up to his neck, but he could never quench his thirst, for whenever he bent to drink, the water receded. Above his head hung branches loaded with fruits, but whenever he tried to pick one, the branch bent out of his reach. Tantalus was the son of Zeus, and he had been so favored by the gods that he had been invited to feast with them all the way up on high Mount Olympus. In return, he had asked the gods to come dine with him in his palace in Asia Minor. He was a king of vast riches, but nothing that he owned seemed good enough to set before his exalted guests. His son Pelops was his greatest treasure, and wanting to give the gods his absolute best, Tantalus decided to sacrifice him. He made a stew of him and set the dish before the gods. But the Olympian gods detested human sacrifice. Outraged, they threw Tantalus to the punishing grounds in the underworld, and they brought Pelops back to life. But one of his shoulders was missing, and the gods replaced it with a piece of ivory. They all gave him rich gifts. Poseidon gave him a team of fast horses and told him to set off and win for himself a new kingdom. In Greece, there was a beautiful princess whose name was Hippodamia. She was the daughter of Oenomaus, the king of Elis, and whoever married her would inherit all that kingdom. But her father loved her so dearly that he could never bear to part with her. He had a team of horses given to him by Ares, the god of war, whose son he was. And whenever a suitor came to ask for his daughter's hand, Oenomaus challenged him to a chariot race. Now, if the suitor won, they would win the princess. But if he lost, he would lose his head. No horses on earth could outrun the horses of Ares, and the heads of 12 suitors already hung at the gates of the palace. When Pelops arrived in Elis to woo the princess, Oenomaus did not know that Pelops also had a team of magic horses. And the king looked forward to nailing the 13th head on the gates. But Hippodamia fell in love with the young prince and wanted to save his life, and so she asked her father's stable boy to fix the king's chariot so that Pelops would win. Now the stable boy, eager to please her, did more than he was asked to do. He took out the wooden pins that held the wheels to the axle, and he replaced them with pins made from wax. Never had there been such a race. The fiery horses ran neck, and the king, to his surprise, could not pull ahead no matter how hard he swung his whip. But then, suddenly, the wax pins gave way. The wheels of the chariot flew off, and the king was thrown to his death. Pelops married Hippodamia and became the king of Elis. He flung the faithless stable boy into the sea and gave the old king a magnificent funeral feast, inviting heroes from all over Greece to take part in an athletic games in his honor. And he offered fabulous prizes to the winners. For Pelops had brought with him the great riches of his father, Tantalus. The games were held on the plain of high Olympia in Elis, and they were to be repeated every 4 years. These were called the Olympic Games.